"Sir, my baby sister is freezing," little boy said. The CEO wrapped them in his coat and took home. The snow was falling sideways, thick and sharp like needles slicing through the winter air, turning the city streets into a frozen maze of white and gray. People hurried past with their heads down, coats zipped tight, scarves pulled up to their eyes. No one wanted to linger. No one wanted to look. Near the entrance of a towering glass building, one of those corporate giants that scraped the sky and screamed wealth, stood a little boy no older than 8. His shoes were soaked through, the soles cracked and thin, barely holding together. In his arms, wrapped in a torn sweater far too big for her, was a baby girl. Her lips were blue. Her tiny fingers twitched weakly. The boy rocked back and forth, pressing his cheek against her forehead, trying to shield her from the wind with his own small body. Every few seconds, he whispered, "Please, stay warm, please." His breath came out in desperate clouds. People passed him, businessmen, women in heels, drivers stepping out of luxury cars, but no one stopped. Some looked away. Some pretended not to hear when the baby whimpered. The boy's legs were shaking, but he stayed standing. He had promised himself he would not sit down. If he sat, he might not get back up. That was when the black car pulled up. It was sleek, expensive, and unmistakable. The kind of car that belonged to someone who never worried about the cold. The driver stepped out quickly and opened the back door. A tall man emerged, his coat perfectly tailored, his hair silver at the temples, his expression tired in a way that had nothing to do with weather. He was a CEO, one of the most powerful men in the city, heading into a board meeting that would decide the future of a billion-dollar merger. His assistant was already talking, listing numbers and schedules, when a small voice cut through the noise. "Sir, please." The CEO paused. The boy had stepped forward, his knees almost buckling. He looked up with eyes too old for his face, eyes that had learned disappointment early. He held the baby tighter. "Sir, my baby sister is freezing." For a moment, everything stopped. The wind. The voices. Even time seemed to hesitate. The CEO looked down at the child, really looked, and saw the baby's blue lips, the boy's raw, red hands, the way his shoulders were hunched as if he'd been carrying the weight of the world for far too long. The assistant started to say something, about being late, about security, but the CEO raised a hand without looking back. He slowly took off his coat. It was thick, expensive, lined with cashmere, worth more than everything the boy owned in his entire life. Without a word, he knelt down in the snow and wrapped the coat around both children, tucking it carefully around the baby first, making sure her face was covered but free to breathe. The warmth hit instantly. The baby let out a soft sound, almost a sigh. The boy stared, stunned. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Thank you, sir." The CEO felt something tighten in his chest, something unfamiliar. Guilt, maybe. Or memory. He asked gently, "Where is your mother?" The boy looked down. "She went to sleep and didn't wake up," he said. 3 days ago." The words landed like a blow. The CEO swallowed hard. "And your father?" "I don't know him." Silence stretched between them, heavy and painful. Snow gathered on the CEO's polished shoes, but he didn't move. "Where have you been staying?" he asked. The boy hesitated, then pointed down the street. "Behind the bakery. There's a box, but it got wet." The CEO stood slowly, his decision already forming before logic could interfere. He took off his gloves and handed them to the boy. "You're not staying outside anymore," he said. The boy blinked. "Sir. You're coming with me." The assistant froze. "Sir, the meeting." "Cancel it." The assistant's mouth fell open. "But. I said cancel it." The CEO picked up the baby gently, supporting her head the way someone who remembered once holding a child would. He motioned for the boy to follow and guided them both into the warm car. The heater blasted immediately. The boy's hands trembled as feeling returned, painful and sharp. Tears slid down his face, silent and unstoppable. He had promised himself he wouldn't cry. But the warmth broke him. The ride was quiet. The baby fell asleep against the CEO's chest, her breathing finally steady. The boy watched everything, the leather seats, the lights outside, the way the city looked different from inside warmth. He was afraid this might disappear if he blinked. They didn't go to a shelter. They went to a house. A large house, gated, glowing with golden light against the snow. The kind of place the boy had only seen on TV screens in shop windows. He hesitated at the door, afraid to step inside, afraid of being told this was a mistake. But the CEO opened the door wide. "Welcome home," he said softly. Inside, staff rushed forward, shocked by the sight. The CEO gave calm, firm instructions: hot baths prepared, food warmed, a doctor called immediately. The boy clutched the coat tighter around his sister, his eyes darting everywhere. As the doctor examined the baby and confirmed she would survive, the boy finally sat down. Exhaustion hit him all at once. He slumped forward, his body giving up after days of staying strong. Before he fell asleep, he felt a hand rest on his shoulder. "You did good," the CEO said quietly. "You kept her alive." The boy smiled faintly. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside that house, 2 frozen lives had just changed forever. And as the CEO stood there watching the children sleep, something deep inside him began to thaw, something he didn't even realize had been frozen for years. Morning arrived quietly, as if the house itself did not want to disturb the fragile peace that had settled overnight. The storm outside had softened into a gentle snowfall, flakes drifting lazily past tall windows. In a guest room warmed by a crackling fire, the little boy woke with a sharp intake of breath, his body tensing as if bracing for cold concrete and hunger. But there was no biting wind, no damp cardboard. There were thick blankets, clean sheets, and the soft sound of his baby sister breathing steadily beside him. For a long moment, he did not move. He was afraid that if he did, everything would vanish. He watched his sister's chest rise and fall, watched the pink return to her cheeks, and only then did he let himself believe that the night before had been real. He slid carefully out of bed, walked to the window, and pressed his palm against the glass. The world outside looked distant and gentle, like a place that could not hurt him anymore. His stomach growled, but even that felt different now, less desperate, less frightening. Downstairs, the CEO sat alone at the long dining table, untouched breakfast cooling in front of him. He had not slept. Every time he closed his eyes, memories surfaced, memories he had buried under contracts, profits, and relentless ambition. Years ago, he had lost a child. A tiny coffin, a hospital hallway, a silence that never truly left. After that, he had built walls instead of a family, companies instead of connections. He told himself that success filled the space grief had carved out. Seeing the boy's raw hands and the baby's blue lips had shattered that lie in seconds. He looked up as footsteps approached and saw the boy standing hesitantly at the doorway, clutching the oversized coat like armor. "Good morning," the CEO said gently. The boy nodded. "Morning, sir. You can call me Daniel," he replied after a pause. It felt strange to offer his name without a title, but also right. "Are you hungry?" The boy nodded again, this time more firmly. They sat together, plates soon filled with warm food. The boy ate slowly at first, like someone afraid the meal might be taken away, then faster as confidence grew. Daniel watched without comment, his chest tightening as he imagined how long it had been since this child had eaten properly. When the baby was brought down, bundled and alert, Daniel felt something inside him shift permanently. She gripped his finger with surprising strength, and he laughed softly, a sound that startled even himself. Later that morning, Daniel asked the questions he had avoided the night before. The boy told his story in a small, steady voice. Their mother had worked nights cleaning offices, days watching the baby, always tired but always smiling at them. When she got sick, she said it was just a cold. Then she stopped waking up. The landlord had come, angry, threatening. The boy took his sister and ran. He did not cry when he spoke. He had already done all his crying in the dark. When he finished, the room was silent. Daniel stood and walked to the window, his jaw tight. He had spent millions on charity galas and corporate donations, but none of it had ever put food into this boy's hands or warmth around this baby. For the first time, his success felt hollow. He turned back, kneeling so they were eye level. "You're safe here," he said. "No one will hurt you. No one will take you away." The boy searched his face. "Promise?" "I promise." The following weeks unfolded like a slow miracle. Doctors confirmed the baby was healthy. New clothes replaced rags. The boy learned what it felt like to sleep without fear. He began to laugh, at first quietly, then loudly, the sound filling rooms that had known only silence for years. Daniel watched it all, feeling his house transform into something alive. He canceled meetings without guilt. He stayed home. He learned how to warm bottles, how to listen, how to sit on the floor and build towers only to knock them down again. The press noticed his absence, rumors swirling, but for once, he did not care. One evening, as the boy and baby slept, Daniel sat alone with a framed photograph he had not looked at in over a decade, the picture of the child he had lost. Tears finally came, heavy and unrestrained. He realized then that saving these children had not erased his pain, it had given it purpose. He could not change the past, but he could change their future. Months later, the adoption hearing was brief but emotional. The boy stood straight, holding his sister, his small hand tucked into Daniel's larger one. When the judge smiled and declared them a family, the boy broke down completely, sobbing into Daniel's coat. Cameras flashed outside, headlines exploding across screens, CEO adopts homeless siblings he rescued from snowstorm. But inside the courthouse, none of that mattered. What mattered was the boy whispering, "Thank you for choosing us," and Daniel answering, "You chose me first." Years passed. The boy grew strong, confident, compassionate. He never forgot the cold, never forgot the people who had walked past. He used his voice to speak for those still unseen. His sister grew up surrounded by warmth, unaware of how close she had once been to freezing. Daniel changed too. His company shifted focus, investing in shelters, healthcare, and families in crisis, not as a publicity stunt, but as a mission born from lived truth. On one snowy anniversary, the three of them stood outside the same building where it had all begun. The boy, now taller, steadier, looked up at Daniel and smiled. "If I hadn't asked you that day." Daniel shook his head. "If you hadn't been brave." They walked away together, leaving footprints in fresh snow. And somewhere, unseen but felt, kindness echoed, proof that one moment, one choice, one coat wrapped around two freezing children could rewrite an entire destiny. This story moved you, remember, your kindness could be someone's miracle. Subscribe to this channel for more powerful stories that restore faith in humanity.